Welcome to the next episode of Small Business Legal Tips. I'm attorney Mark Bross of Bross LLC. Today we're going to talk about how to protect your intellectual property. Intellectual property is one of the most valuable assets of your business, but often business owners don't take the necessary steps to protect it. In this video, we'll talk about the types of intellectual property you might have and various steps you want to take in order to protect it. And please, if you like the content in this video, please hit the like button and ring the below to get notified of when any future videos are posted. Before we get into details, I need to get some boring legal stuff out of the way. Although I'm an attorney, I am not your attorney. The stuff I talk about in this video is not a substitute for legal advice. If you have any questions or need legal advice, please speak with an attorney located in your jurisdiction. If you have any questions and are located in Massachusetts, I would be happy to speak with you. Please reach out to me through my website, www.brossallllc.com, and I'll put a link below. Now let's move on to the important stuff. The first step you want to take in order to protect your intellectual property is identify what type of intellectual property you have. Now, by intellectual property, I mean any type of thing that you create with your mind. And there are various types of intellectual property that can be created, and there are various types of protections that exist. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of intellectual property. The first type is what's called a trademark. A trademark is any unique or distinctive logo, symbol, word, phrases, or design that identifies your goods or services and distinguishes them from competitors in the marketplace. Think of things like the Nike swoosh or the McDonald's golden arches. Both of those things are trademarks because they identify the company that produces them and distinguishes them from other companies in the marketplace. You know, if you buy a pair of sneakers with a Nike swoosh on it, you expect a certain type of quality from the sneaker. And just as if you know you buy chicken nuggets from a restaurant with the golden arches, you expect a certain quality of chicken nuggets that come from McDonald's. The next type of intellectual property are copyrights. A copyright is a type of intellectual property that protects any artistic creation as soon as it's fixed in a medium. So think of things like a novel, a blog post, a song, a painting, a video, anything like that. All those are protected by copyright, and that protection exists as soon as it's created. The next type of intellectual property is a patent. A patent is a type of intellectual property that protects original inventions or creations. And you get a patent by filing a registration with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And then once it's registered, you get protection for around 20 years. And you have the exclusive right to use that invention and exclude others from using it. The next type of intellectual property is a trade secret. A trade secret is any type of confidential and proprietary information that's valuable to your company because it's a secret, and you're taking reasonable steps to keep it a secret. Think of something like the recipe for Coca-Cola. That recipe has been around for hundreds of years, and it's extremely valuable to Coca-Cola because it's a secret and no one else has it. After you've figured out the type of intellectual property you have, the next step you want to take to protect it is to register the types of intellectual property that can be registered with the appropriate government agency. And there are various types of intellectual property that can be registered in order to protect them. The first type is a trademark. Trademarks, if you're located in the United States, should be registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And I'll put a link below to the website where you can obtain information about registering it. And again, I'm talking about if you're located in the United States. If you're located in another country, then you should register the trademark with the appropriate government agency in the location where you're at. It's also be registered in the state where you live, but it doesn't provide as good a protection as you would get with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Another type of intellectual property that can be registered is a copyright. If you're located in the United States and you have a copyright, you want to register it as soon as possible with the United States Copyright Office. And I'll put a link below to the website where you can do that. Now, again, as I mentioned, you don't need to register a copyright. But by registering it, you get the most protection for your copyright, and you provide notice to other people that you are claiming it. The third type of intellectual property that needs to be registered is a patent. And in fact, unlike the other two, you don't have a patent until you have some kind of registration or application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So if you want patent protection, you need to file something with them. And I'll put a link below to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office where you can get information about how to register. The reason why you want to register each of these 3 types of intellectual property is you'll get much broader protection in case there ever happens to be an infringement. You'll be eligible to receive more damages. You might also be eligible to receive attorney's fees, and you're also providing notice. Although each of these three types of intellectual property should be registered, the process for doing so is very different, and the costs associated with it can vary wildly. I highly recommend you speak with an attorney who can help you with the process. But there is a lot of information available online, especially at the websites I provided below. One other point I want to make is that although registration can help you protect your IP, this registration is only good in the United States. If you want international protection for your intellectual property, you're going to need to take advantage of various treaties between the United States and other countries. You also may need to register and file something in the various locations where you want protection. I would highly recommend you speak with an attorney who can help you with this process. Before I move on, if you're finding this information helpful or useful, please hit the like button or subscribe button below. This channel is all about providing helpful and useful tools to business owners and entrepreneurs in order to help them succeed. So please hit the like button and subscribe button. The next step you want to take in order to protect your intellectual property is to make use of various written agreements. The type of agreement you need is going to depend on the type of intellectual property you're trying to protect. So for example, if you're trying to protect trade secrets, you're going to want to make use of non-disclosure agreements or confidentiality agreements in order to protect this intellectual property. An NDA is an agreement where the party who signs it is agreeing not to use your confidential information for any other purpose other than what's specified in the agreement. So you want to make sure that anybody you give your trade secrets to, that they sign on this type of agreement and that you get the information back when the agreement's terminated. If you're trying to protect trademarks, copyrights, or patents, you're going to want to make use of various licensing agreements in which the party who's using your intellectual property is agreeing that they only have a license to use it. And the license is going to specify how long they can use the information for, what they can use it for, how much they're paying you in order to use it, and what happens to it when the license terminates. And you're going to want to have this in writing and signed by any other party who you give your intellectual property to. Another type of agreement that you want to have is if you're having someone create intellectual property for you, such as a logo, a design, a blog post, or anything like that, you're going to want to have them sign what's called a work for hire agreement or an intellectual property agreement that specifies that your business is the owner of whatever intellectual property they're creating for you. That way, you're avoiding any kind of potential issue about who owns the intellectual property in the future. Another step you want to take to protect your intellectual property is to create comprehensive records of all your intellectual property assets, including trademarks, copyrights, patents, trade secrets, or anything else like that. The types of records you want to create with respect to your intellectual property are records about who created the intellectual property, the date it was created, how much money was spent in creating the intellectual property. For intellectual property that's registered, you want to have the registration records, when it was registered, what is the next maintenance date that needs to be completed with respect to it. For any type of intellectual property that you have a license for or license with, you want to have an agreement record so you make clear as to what exactly agreement you have and who has what license for what property, when the license expires, and various other things. The point of creating these comprehensive records is so that if there's ever a dispute about what intellectual property you have and whether someone's infringing on it, you want to be able to produce these records to show that you own it and that you have all this information about it. The next step you want to take to protect your intellectual property is to educate your employees. You want to educate your employees about the types of intellectual property you have, the importance of protecting your intellectual property, and you also want to establish strict guidelines about how proprietary and confidential information should be handled. You should establish strict guidelines and policies about handling intellectual property, and also create reporting requirements for what happens if someone suspects intellectual property infringement. And the training should be ongoing. So you should have an initial training session when the employee first joins the company. You should have quarterly or annual refreshment sessions and all sorts of other things. You want to make sure that it's front of mind for each employee about your intellectual property and what they want to do in order to protect it. So that way you make sure that they understand that this is really important to your business and it's a valuable part of your business. The next step you want to take with your intellectual property is you need to regularly monitor the marketplace and your workplace to look for possible infringement. Now, there are various ways you can do this. You might want to do it yourself, where you're constantly searching the internet or observing competitors or looking at other locations to see if any of your intellectual property is being used by someone else. But you can also hire various services to do that. The services cost money, but it's worthwhile in order to protect your intellectual property. If you find someone who's using your intellectual property, you also need to be prepared to enforce your rights. Now, this can include taking actions such as sending a cease and desist letter, sending a DMCA takedown notice, or possibly filing a lawsuit. But you need to be prepared to do it in order to protect your intellectual property. If you find anybody who's infringing on any of your intellectual property, I highly recommend you speak with an attorney to talk about what the next best steps are. I hope you found this information helpful. Your intellectual property is one of the most valuable assets of your business. But if you're not taking steps to protect it, you risk losing it and seriously harming your business. Take action today and implement the 6 strategies discussed in this video in order to protect your intellectual property. You've worked too hard to put it all at risk and leave it go unprotected. And if you've liked what you heard, hit the like and subscribe button for more real-world legal tips. And drop a comment below for any IP questions you have or for any other topics you might like for me to discuss. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.